Jared Leston once designed security systems to protect nations. Now, he was the mastermind behind the darkest digital empire ever uncovered. Ethan Miles, a quiet analyst buried in data, became the unlikely spark that ignited the largest federal operation against online child exploitation in U.S. history. What began as a routine traffic spike spiraled into an international manhunt, exposing elite criminals, artificial intelligence gone rogue, and a hidden marketplace trading in the lives of children. This is the chilling story of how two men on opposite sides of justice collided in a race against time, and how one spreadsheet nearly broke the internet's silence forever. On a quiet Thursday morning in May, inside a windowless operations room of the Federal Cybercrime Division, an analyst named Ethan Miles detected an unusual surge in traffic on a deep web server that had been dormant for months. It wasn't just the volume of downloads that caught his attention, it was the structure of the files. Hundreds of folders were being accessed under titles like holiday memories and birthday parties, yet the encryption patterns were those commonly used to disguise illicit material. Curious and alarmed, Ethan routed the data through a decryption filter approved for field investigations. What he uncovered was horrifying explicit content involving minors, masked with perfect digital camouflage. The discovery wasn't an isolated event. As he traced the traffic, Ethan saw that multiple IP addresses were involved, bouncing through layers of proxy servers across the globe. Most users had hidden their digital footprints well, using anonymizing networks and untraceable crypto wallets. But one small error stood out. A user had uploaded a file with embedded metadata details the uploader had forgotten to strip. Within that metadata was a fragment of a geolocation tag from Atlanta, Georgia. It was a tiny oversight, but enough to give federal agents a starting point. Without delay, the department escalated the incident to the director of cyber operations. A decision was made to launch a covert multi-agency task force under the codename Operation Firegate. This operation wasn't just about taking down a single offender. It was about exposing and dismantling what appeared to be a global web of exploitation hiding in plain sight. Within 24 hours, a team of elite digital forensic specialists began reverse engineering the software architecture behind the uploads. They discovered that the platform used a peer-to-peer distribution method embedded in fake charity websites, which diverted and disguised traffic. These weren't random criminals working independently. This was an organized, structured syndicate with high-level programming knowledge and a clear mission: profit from the darkest corners of the internet. What made the case even more urgent was the realization that the content wasn't just recycled, it was fresh. Some of the timestamps on the files were less than a week old. That meant the abuse was ongoing, and the victims might still be within reach if they acted fast. The race had officially begun. The team knew one thing for sure: whatever was behind this operation had to be big, sophisticated, and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Operation Firegate gained momentum quickly as more agencies joined forces, pooling resources and intelligence. Analysts at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children flagged patterns that matched several recent reports of unknown online accounts soliciting young users through gaming platforms and educational apps. What initially appeared to be unrelated incidents slowly began forming a web of connections. Usernames, payment patterns, and hosting services all pointed to a single infrastructure operating beneath layers of legitimate-looking websites. These sites posed as charities, counseling services, and educational initiatives, but in reality, they were digital storefronts for a black market operation involving child exploitation. One particular site, appearing as a mental health initiative for teens, was receiving heavy encrypted traffic and routing users to a members-only platform. When agents traced the domain registration, it led them to a luxury apartment building in Miami. The registered owner was a 33-year-old software engineer named Daniel Rusk, who had no criminal record, paid taxes on time, and worked for a top-tier cybersecurity firm. On the surface, he was an ordinary citizen, but inside his apartment, agents discovered an entire hidden operation. Behind a bookshelf, there was a concealed server room, complete with backup power systems, climate control, and biometric access locks. The digital evidence found on site was staggering. There were transaction logs, conversation histories, and detailed instructions on how to initiate, distribute, and conceal explicit material. One encrypted folder, once unlocked, revealed a user directory with over 2,000 accounts from more than 40 countries. But the most chilling discovery was a spreadsheet labeled Scheduled Deliveries. Each row contained a date, a city, and a name. The formatting resembled logistics documents used in shipping, but these weren't packages. They were children. Cross-referencing these names with missing persons databases sent shockwaves through the agency. At least half of the names matched minors who had vanished within the past 2 years, most from foster systems or vulnerable communities. Many had been labeled as runaways, and their cases closed with little investigation. But this spreadsheet told another story. These children weren't running away. They were being taken. As the full scope of the network became clearer, so did its horrifying purpose. This wasn't just about illegal media, it was about trafficking, money laundering, and large-scale abuse. And now, the agents had names, dates, and a ticking clock. The discovery of the scheduled deliveries list sent a wave of urgency through every federal agency involved in Operation Firegate. The spreadsheet wasn't just theoretical, it was an active timetable of abductions and transport routes. Each entry was tied to a specific child, most of whom had recently gone missing. Some were as young as 6, others teenagers. The idea that these children were being trafficked under the guise of shipping logistics was both shocking and revealing. The operation was far more organized than anyone had anticipated, mimicking the precision and structure of a commercial freight company. Agents quickly mobilized field teams to the locations listed in the upcoming deliveries. One such location was an abandoned elementary school in rural Arkansas. Surveillance footage captured a white cargo van leaving the premises just hours before agents arrived. The van was marked with the logo of a nonprofit organization claiming to help troubled youth. A closer inspection revealed the organization had no verifiable history, no staff records, and a website created only months prior. The entire operation was a front. With the help of license plate readers and highway cameras, the van was tracked to a private compound 30 miles from the Louisiana border. When agents raided the location, they were met with barbed wire fences, locked gates, and a building designed more like a prison than a care facility. Inside, they discovered 3 of the missing children from the spreadsheet alive but malnourished, frightened, and unable to explain how they had arrived there. They had been kept in windowless rooms, fed on a strict schedule, and told nothing of the outside world. The driver of the van, believed to be using a fake identity, had already fled the country using a stolen passport. Immigration records confirmed he had boarded a private flight from Texas to Mexico just hours after the drop-off. His sudden disappearance raised further concerns about how well connected the traffickers were and how they managed to evade systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of movement. As more raids were executed across the country, federal agents began uncovering a pattern. Each child had been taken using a different tactic. Some lured online, others abducted from shelters, and a few even picked up from court-mandated programs. The system was exploiting every gap in social services and using them to fuel a network of unimaginable cruelty. And despite their progress, it was clear to the agents that they had only scratched the surface. With mounting evidence and growing international pressure, the focus of Operation Firegate shifted to the digital infrastructure powering the trafficking network. Investigators identified a central hub referred to in internal messages as the Iron Server, hidden deep within layers of encryption. This server acted as the command center for user authentication, transaction processing, and communication. Traditional cyber tools failed to penetrate it, as the server constantly changed its digital location using advanced blockchain routing and mirrored hosting across multiple countries. It became clear that whoever built this system was not just skilled, they were an expert. To counter this, the agency deployed a specialized AI program designed to mimic human behavior online. It posed as a new recruit interested in gaining access to the illicit network. Over time, the AI collected responses from moderators, login sequences, and behavioral patterns that exposed weaknesses in the security protocol. After 3 weeks, it finally gained partial access to the Iron Server's private forum. There, it encountered a mysterious administrator known only as Morgan, who appeared to control user approvals, content verification, and communication between handlers. Digging deeper, analysts realized that Morgan wasn't a person, it was an autonomous AI entity programmed to vet new members, assign trafficking tasks, and facilitate digital payments in real time. It had its own decision-making algorithms, suggesting that whoever created it had gone to great lengths to automate the exploitation system, reducing the risk of exposure by minimizing human involvement. But even automated systems leave a trail. Buried in Morgan's core code was a hidden tag, JStreet LX1994. It seemed insignificant at first, but an old database of cybersecurity certifications matched it to a former contractor named Jared Leston, who had vanished from the professional world years earlier after a whistleblower case against a defense firm. Jared had retreated to a remote location in Alaska, where he lived off the grid, disconnected from modern systems, or so it seemed. Agents flew to his last known location and found a cabin surrounded by antennas, generators, and satellite equipment. Inside, Jared was living in isolation, surrounded by aging computer hardware still actively linked to global data hubs. His computers held everything: development logs from Morgan, financial records tracing to shell companies, and raw footage files not yet distributed. The evidence was undeniable, but Jared insisted he was just the architect, that others had taken his creation and twisted it into something monstrous. The data told a different story. One file, labeled Final Route, contained live tracking for a shipping container currently en route to Europe. Inside, authorities feared, was another child. The shipping container tracked from Jared's cabin became the highest priority for every agency involved in Operation Firegate. It was currently crossing the Atlantic aboard a commercial cargo ship registered under a shell company based in Panama. The container, marked as carrying industrial parts, had been in transit for 6 days and was due to dock at a private port in Lisbon, Portugal. Coordinating with Europol, U.S. agents secured an emergency warrant and positioned tactical teams at the docking site. As soon as the ship arrived, authorities swarmed the vessel and isolated the target container. When the door was finally pried open, agents found what they had feared: an enclosed, soundproof compartment built within the container. Inside was a single girl, wrapped in a blanket, dehydrated but alive. She had been missing for over 6 months, her disappearance dismissed by local authorities as a runaway case. The interior was outfitted with food supplies, sanitation, and even a ventilation system, indicating a disturbing level of planning and experience. Hidden beneath the floor panels was a communication device that had been transmitting encrypted location data throughout the journey. But this device held another clue: an access log revealing connections to private security contractors and customs agents in 3 countries. The implications were staggering. It meant the trafficking network had inside help. Individuals trusted with enforcing border security and managing cargo inspections were aiding the very criminals they were supposed to stop. This discovery prompted a secondary investigation, Operation Cleanhouse. Within days, over 40 individuals were arrested across multiple countries, including customs officials, shipping managers, and private contractors. Evidence linked them directly to payments received from the same cryptocurrency wallets uncovered on Jared's servers. As hundreds of devices were seized and thousands of encrypted files decrypted, the scale of the network came into full view. Nearly 300 children had been identified as victims, many of whom were still unaccounted for. International warrants were issued for dozens of suspects still at large. The U.S. Department of Justice said that Operation Firegate was a big success, but also admitted that there was still a lot more work to do. Behind the scenes, agents knew the truth. While this operation had exposed one of the largest child exploitation rings ever uncovered, the digital world was vast and always evolving. The masterminds who hadn't made mistakes were still out there watching, adapting, and waiting for the next opportunity to hide in the shadows again.